NFL free agency, where every fan thinks they can add that one more piece to get them into the playoffs. Here are the top 7 moves I would make if I were the Jets GM.
Jets, Jets!
All right, to start off, how much cap space do we have to work with? SpotTrack has us at about $106 million, while Over the Cap has us at 93.8. For the sake of argument, I'm going to use that 93.8 number just because, it's a little less money to work with. So in the event that we do have more money, bonus for us. So right off the bat, $93.8 million. One of the first moves I'd make is Spencer Long, cutting him. It's going to save us an additional $6.5 million, which brings us up to $103 million. Now, before we go into free agency, we have to kind of look at some of our own free agents and see who we'd want to bring back. We've already brought back Enunwa, so his number is already taken out of that cap number. First, I'd look at Robbie Anderson. He's not a free agent, he's a restricted free agent, which means we have the option to place a round tender on him. Depending on which round tender you use, determines the amount he will be paid for next season. So if we place the first round tender on him, he will be paid $4.4 million. And if a team would like to sign him, they would have to give the Jets a first round pick. Now, the reason I don't choose a second round tender is because the price difference is about $1 million. So for $1 million, do you really want to lose Robbie Anderson potentially to get a late second round pick? I don't really think so. I think he's more valuable to us than that. So for the extra $1 million, first round tender, Robbie Anderson stays a Jet for next year. Now we go into the offensive line. Obviously, this is a huge area of concern for the Jets. We have our franchise quarterback. We want to protect him. We want to keep him upright. And our line did not perform well. We were one of the top 6 highest paid offensive lines in the NFL, and all the other top 6 lines ranked in the top 10 in terms of overall grade. The Jets were ranked 24th. So obviously there's a disconnect between the amount of money we're shelling out and the production we're getting on the field. With Spencer Long gone, we're going to have to address either center or guard because Carpenter's a free agent. I don't believe we bring him back. So Matt Paradis, whatever, I don't know how to pronounce that name, 29 years old, from the Broncos. He graded out as the number 2 overall center this year. They have a young replacement on the roster for him, so he is more than likely going to hit the free agency market. 4 years, $44 million. That would make him $11 million per year, the highest paid center in the league. I think that's going to be the going rate for him. Offensive linemen are going to be at a premium, so you're going to have to pay the top contract. A second move would be John Miller from the Bills. There's some talk about whether he's coming back or not. I don't believe he was a selection by their current regime. I know he does want to stay in Buffalo, so maybe New York, he stays relatively close to where he was and goes to a division rival. We weaken a division opponent. He graded out as I believe it was the 26th ranked guard. So if you think 2 guards per team, that's pretty solid. So right there, we beef up our offensive line. We protect Sam Darnold. I think we will look to add some more young talent in the 3rd round with some linemen there. All right, on to the fun positions. Le'Veon Bell. Obviously, he is going to be the talk of the town. He's the big kahuna in terms of free agents that could be available. It's reported that he wants $17 million. So for the sake of argument, since a lot of teams have a lot of cap space, we're going to say he hits that $17 million. The Jets offer him 5 years, $85 million, with 3 years fully guaranteed at $17 million a pop. That blows the water out of the highest paid guaranteed contract for a running back. I think that gets the job done. I know he said he wouldn't run with the Jets, for $60 million, but I think realistically when he sees his market, he's not going to get the numbers that he was ideally hoping to hit. But $17 million a year brings him to New York. I think he is a huge piece that could add to our offense, both in pass blocking and in the passing game and in the run game. I think having him to be that safety valve for Sam, to just flip it out into the flat and let him work his magic, is more valuable than any wide receiver we could possibly bring in at this particular point in time. And I think Sam Darnold needs to be the focal point of this entire offseason. We need to make the team as good as possible around him so he can grow and continue to flourish as our quarterback. Wide receiver-wise, I would like us to bring in Tavon Austin. He's going to be 28 years old. He knows Greg Williams from his time with St. Louis, so there's a little bit of a connection there. He only played 7 games this year due to injury. He was traded from the Rams to the Cowboys for, I believe it was a 6th-round pick. He didn't really have a great year with Andre Roberts on our end, getting up there in years. We could potentially use him as a punt returner and kick returner. I don't think he's going to cost that much to sign. He's renegotiated his deal to bring it down to $7 million last year. So I think we'll do 1 year, $4 million for Tavon Austin. That gives us that quick, shifty receiver that should help us replace kind of I guess Jermaine Kearse. I don't see us bringing Kearse back, so I think Austin could kind of slide into that slot role, and then what could be on the outside slot, play all over, and then Robbie's obviously the burner going down the field. And for the defense, all right, so I think Buster Skrine is gone. I don't think he's going to be coming back. Tyrann Mathieu, all the Jet fans wanted him last year. There was, talk of the Flying Tigers and the LSU Tigers between Tremaine Johnson and, Jamal Adams and Mo Claiborne. I think the reason he wasn't brought in last year was because I think he's dating Todd Bowles' daughter. I think that's how it worked out, or he used to. I don't really know. He's like family to Todd Bowles, so there was probably a family issue right there with a conflict of interest. So I think this year we do look to go after him. The Texans do have a lot of money, so I don't know if it'll be real easy to get him. But we'll say 1 year or 3 years, $21 million, $7 million cap hit. I think he would replace Buster Skrine in the slot, gives us that option to play safety, corner, up at the line of scrimmage. It kind of gives us a lot more flexibility, similar to a Jamal Adams. And then on, as far as edge rushers go, I think there's going to be a lot of talk of DeMarcus Lawrence, a lot of talk of Jadeveon Clowney, and Dee Ford. Those 3 guys, if any one of them hits the free agent market, the Jets should be first in line to sign that dude up to, be on our opening day roster. But this is the NFL, and there are franchise tags, and there are a lot of teams with a lot of cap space. If you look at the Cowboys, they actually don't have that many players to re-sign, and I think they have 5 or 6 draft picks, so they're actually at 53 players with, I think, $50 million in cap space or so. So they're going to be able to easily re-sign DeMarcus Lawrence. I think he's going to go back, whether it's on the franchise tag, so he won't be available. Clowney, the Texans have a ton of money. He's not going anywhere. Dee Ford might be able to shake loose, but for the sake of argument, let's say they want to hold on to Ford and they release maybe another player on their team for the Chiefs. So I have us going after Dante Fowler. Obviously, McCagnon loved him in the draft process. We tried to trade Teddy Bridgewater for him this past season. I think now that he's set to hit free agency, the Rams aren't going to be able to pay him. I think the Jets are going to make a push for him finally. He's probably the most confident player, he's the player I feel most confident will be a New York Jet going into next season, just because of that connection throughout his growth coming into the league with McCagnon. We'll give him the same contract as Melvin Ingram. He hasn't been as productive, so maybe that number's a little bit less. We're looking at 4 years, $68 million. That's $17 million a year. So obviously it's a lot of money, but I think for a pass rusher, the Jets haven't had one in so long. That's something you're going to want to lock up and, put some pressure on the quarterback. I've said the stat multiple times. If you put pressure on the quarterback, even if you're not getting sacks, you're dropping that quarterback rating by 32 points, going from, the efficiency of Ben Roethlisberger down to a Blaine Gabbert. So obviously, getting pressure on the quarterback is a huge, huge, huge part of this offseason and a huge part of the NFL game in general. If the quarterback's on his back, that makes the job easier for all the corners, all the safeties, all the linebackers. If he's scrambling around, he's not able to complete passes accurately. So with those moves, that'll give us 6 new players, or I guess 7 players. So we have 40 players on the roster to begin with. We re-signed Robbie Anderson. That gets us up to 47 with all these free agency moves. We have 6 players that are going to come in through the draft. And keep in mind, the draft does cost us cap space. So that initial number that we're looking at is actually going to be $10 million lower due to the amount of players we're going to have to sign through just the draft. So the amount of cap space is always a little bit skewed due to that. But if you look at that, that leaves us with $22.7 million. That gives us enough room if we want to renegotiate Leonard Williams and extend him, or if we want to make an in-season trade or anything like that. I think it gives us the flexibility. Maybe we want to re-sign some of our guys that aren't necessarily huge critical players but could have an impact on the team in terms of depth. So that's part one of my mock free agency class. We'll see how things change as players get cut and whatnot. But let me know what you guys think down below. As always, go Jets.